Good afternoon, everybody. Come on. So gratified to have such a terrific turnout here, and I just really want to thank Gemma and Sarah and the whole team at the Marketing Society. We have what has now become a global partnership with what we affectionately at the office refer to as Team Gemma. And they'll be coming with us to Advertising Week Asia in Tokyo later this year, to New York in the fall. They really, in every way, represent the very best of the industry, which is delivering, day by day, all year round. We only live 4 days here in the UK, but the Marketing Society, the year round, is really helping pave the way forward. And I think their annual in November is just so outstanding, which we're thrilled to have the opportunity to support every year. And I just really want to thank you for doing such a fantastic job. We are thrilled to have you. It would not be Advertising Week Europe without the Marketing Society. And a wonderful job they did last night hosting a unbelievable dinner that was become an annual tradition at Kensington Palace. So thank you so much, Gemma.
Thank you. Last night when Matt introduced me, he likened me to Sharon Prince. So today that's a slightly different introduction. Welcome. It's just so great to see so many of you here and see so many familiar faces in our members as well. If you don't know us, everything we stand for at the Marketing Society is leadership, is bold leadership and doing things a bit differently. So we didn't want to bring a panel to Marketing Week. Oh, goodness me, to Advertising Week, I apologise. Goodness me, that's terrible. We didn't want to bring a panel to Advertising Week Europe. We wanted to do things a bit differently. So what you're about to see is not a panel of a brilliant leadership cast. It's actually a group of provocateurs led by a brilliant interrogator in Mark Earls, who's also known as the Herdmeister. He's a best-selling author of many books and a big friend of the Marketing Society. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Mark Earls and the panel and the provocateurs.
Heidi, hi. Oh, come on. Heidi, hi. Brilliant. At least some of you were around in the 70s then. Thank you all very much for choosing to be with us in this session. We're going to try and do something different. We're going to not talk about the usual things that marketers talk about in a sensible way. We're not going to try and be nice. We're not going to try and be comfortable. We're going to try and be a bit pointier and talk about the things that people don't normally talk about. We're going to try and get marketers to generally to confess to the stuff that we really need to get fixed. If you like, the elephants in the room, and you'll probably notice the elephant theming through this. I'm very much one for consistency in branding, and elephants are also very cool, right? Who doesn't like an elephant? The elephants in the room is a good metaphor for this because there are lots of things that we all know we need to fix. We all know get in the way. We all know are real problems, but no one ever does anything about it. So we've got 4 of the best and the brightest and the most successful in marketing in the UK here in the room to give you each a chance to hear their elephant. What I want you to do before we start, before we bring them up though, is I want you to, there's a card you should probably have been given on the way in. Did you ever get a card, a sort of playing card? What I want you to do is on the white side, I want you to write your email address. This is not for me to collect them so I can mail you endlessly. But there's a prize to be had at the end, so or prize or 2. On the white side, just write your email address. And before we start this whole thing, when you think about what's the one elephant in the room for you about modern marketing, is it about, is it about the way things work? Is it what we're saying about data? Is it the fact that digital stuff may be the answer or may not be the answer at all? Or that, 15-year-old art directors trying to do stuff for 50-year-old men doesn't really necessarily work anymore. Whatever it is, your thing, your one elephant. And with that, I'd like to welcome up my team for the session today to help me build an elephant. So, elephants and Lego. How cool could that be? Each of them is going to talk for about 5 minutes. And when they get towards the end of their time, you'll hear that little noise. And they'll hear that little noise and they'll know that it's about time to stop. There'll be a bit more of elephant stuff later on, Jungle Book style-y. and we get to the end. Here's how I propose to do it. So come up, guys. We'll just get them all up on the stage. I get the small chair, apparently because I'm facilitated. But do come up. First of all, we got Keith, Mark, Dominic, and Patricia. Big round of applause, please. Mark is so cool, he just ignores stairs and just climbs straight on the stage. He'll be diving off it later on. Once he's build you to a frenzy. Right, OK, we're all set nicely. So here's how we're going to do it then. Each of them is going to take 5 minutes to talk. With two of them first, and we'll have a discussion about them, and I'll try and interrogate them. You get a chance to go, yeah, but, or, and I agree with that, and it's a real problem, or here's how you might solve it. And then we'll go to the other two, and they'll do 5 minutes each, and then we'll do the same thing again, and we'll try and wrap it. What I want to do at the end of this is try and get a sense of what the stuff is that we don't talk about, that marketers experience every day, the stuff that really could make the world a better place for us if we set out to solve them persistently. It's on the back of, I don't know if you took part in the Marketing Society's awesome 24-hour global conversation, which was really good, revealed some interesting common themes and some differences, but I don't think it was pointy enough. So today is pointy, pointy, pointy. And with that, our first speaker is going to be Patricia Corsi from Unilever. Big round of applause, please.
So when I was asked to think about what would be the elephant for me, and the thing that I had to go back a bit 20 odd years when I started my career in Latin America, and I remember that I started with a very love-hate relationship with data. We wanted data so much, we didn't have it, so, and it's coverage, you couldn't even have market share, basic stuff that today we take it for granted. And I remember that you had to develop all these other tricks, and we developed a whole generation in Latin America of marketeers that were masters in Excel and pivot table just to try to compensate lack of coverage, extrapolate things, consumption exercises, and all of that. So fast forward, I moved to Europe almost 10 years ago, and then I said, wow, this is it. You have all the data you want, and I was really excited about that. And it goes on, and we have all this works with different types of information that arrive to us. And in the past year, I'm getting more and more concerned about how this is turning into something that is larger than life. I'm hearing so many people talking about, bigger, better, more. And for me, it's always a means to an end. And I'm really keen on understanding the insights that comes with data. But I don't think by over-testing things, we are going to over-deliver things. So I'm really concerned about that. The other thing is, at the end of the day, I have to be true to myself. When I enter and I join marketing, I can't take outside from me the fantastic feeling that it is when you sit with an agency and they present to you a fantastic creative idea. You want to have that feeling that says, this is freaking brilliant, and then it puts a smile on your face and you can see the possibilities and you can see how it moves forward. I would dread the day when we go to the same situation and somebody says, well, let's see what the algorithm tells us. And I think we missed a little bit. I think magic's probably a bit, some people would tell a bit too esoteric of a word. But, there is something that is the art of it, yeah? That I don't like this route that is taken, that is all about the logic and it's all about data, more data, big data. So I truly think that this is a means to an end. And the other thing that concerns me is the impact on the generation of marketeers that we are developing and that we are leading. It would be a bad place to be when we look ahead and we are just developing people to not be able to take risk decisions without data. And I think this is another fun part of marketing. I think this is an important part of marketing. That is, be able to know when you should try something and not feel trapped and not be paralyzed and, having this analysis paralysis, having everything slow down because you're not able to take any decisions because you don't have the data. And, we all been in places where, the same question in different situations can give you two completely different answers. So which one is the right one? So I'm a big, don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of data, but to use to improve things, to maximize things, to bring good things to greater positions, to take good ideas and to make them epic, fantastic. But not this obsession that I'm hearing too much data, I'm not hearing enough consumer, user, how we are going, I'm in the business where we strive to do fantastic things for the consumer while they're experiencing our products. And you need some magic in there, you need some art in there. I don't believe that just logic, just science is going to be the way through. I think there are lots of things that can come and help on that, but I'm not looking forward to a future where they says everything comes out of data, out of logic, out of something that is a bit too cold. But I'm Latin, so maybe it's a cultural bit. I'm being slowly introduced to the arts of sarcasm and cynicism. And, I've been told that I reached stage 2 only, so maybe another couple of years.
Yet, right?
Yeah, there's still a way to go.
Well, here we go. Thank you. Big round of applause there. Thank you. It's weird, isn't it? The idea that having too much data might be a thing, as opposed to the problem we all complain about, which is just need that perfect data set, just another bit of data, and then we get that one bit of data be more. And more data is better than less data, isn't it? Always, whatever the data is. Come back to the moment. So something similar or related Keith's going to talk about now. So Keith, let's hear your elephant.
Okay, thank you. Afternoon, everyone. I wanted to get you to think about a typical early evening with your friends, with your family. I'm going to tell you a little story about an early Saturday evening with my family. I've got 2 kids, wife, 2 kids. My son's looking at Instagram. He's, checking out what his friends are doing. My daughter's watching some stuff on YouTube on her tablet. She's things where they unwrap squashy toys. I don't know what the obsession is with watching programs about people unwrapping presents, but anyway. My wife's on Facebook, catching up with friends. I'm checking out Twitter. It's proper quality family time. But it's probably typical of a lot of households. And during this time, we're all served plenty of content. Some of it's from people we follow, but a lot of it's branded content. And I think it's important to understand that we're not really watching it. It's there. It's getting served to us, but nobody's watching it, are they? I mean, I don't watch most of it. My kids don't watch most of it. My wife doesn't watch most of it. 60% of branded content on Facebook last year was video. 60%. Now, when you look at the numbers, and I agree with Patricia, but I'm going to give you some stats. There's 8 billion average daily video views, over 500 million users. And on Facebook alone, assuming the minimum three seconds kind of viewing time, that's 760 years of video viewing time each day. I mean, it's nuts. How the hell do we cut through? So there's video everywhere. But if you take my household example, there's eyeballs, and eyeballs are seeing bits of it, but nobody is really watching it. And that's my contention for you guys. So as mobile becomes the preferred vehicle for consuming content, and it really is the preferred vehicle now, 60% of all time spent on the internet is on a mobile device. I mean, I can proliferate many stats to give you that, but I'm sure you understand that yourselves. But people are moving from this kind of search mentality on the use of mobile into a discover mentality. So it's not just a vehicle for search anymore, it's a vehicle for discovery. And we've got massively effective media targeting strategies for getting eyeballs. And, autoplay helps us with that. But it doesn't help us get people to watch it. So I'm going to give you a Santander example. I'm going to be honest, like I was asked to be. So we're a low interest category. I work for a bank. We are pretty much down there in the low interest category. We launched a video this month on the personal savings allowance. For those who have got any interest, it's mildly interesting, but it's low interest, right? And a lot of us are in low interest categories, let's face it. So I was guaranteed 1.7 million placements of the video on people's Facebook timelines. 603,000 people watched that video. but only 5% viewed it all the way through. Now, I was told by my agency that was good, right? Because the video was 2 minutes, 22 seconds long, and the average view time was 22 seconds. And I was told that was good. That's not good, is it? It's not good. I don't think that's good. So, what can we do as marketers? How do we get our heads out of the sand? I think the answer may lie, and it's a may, it's not a definitive, in the teachings of an old direct marketing grandfather, Drayton Bird. I'm going back many years. I started off my career many decades ago, and I learned from the words of Drayton Bird. And I think we have to potentially throw away all our principles about storytelling and the way we tell stories, and perhaps learn from direct marketing. I was catching up with a gentleman called Alex Lubo, who's the CEO of Match Group Europe, and he had a very interesting idea. He wanted to turn content on its head. So I'm borrowing a bit of his idea here. I want to give him a shout out for it. I contend to you guys that it's not the last 5-10 seconds of any bit of content that's the most important, the payoff that we traditionally build towards. It's actually the first 5 seconds. And that's all that really matters. It's now the first 5 seconds. And this is because we're entering a world by, if you listen and agree with Facebook, by 2018, 8 out of 10 timeline posts will be video. So, it's the first 5 seconds that matters, and that's all. Thank you.
Very good. So I think there are clearly some issues, provocative issues raised by both of those. I've got a couple of questions, but if you've got anything in mind, put your hand up and tell us who you are before we give you a question. While you're formulating those, I'm going to just talk to Patricia first about your point of view, which I think is really interesting. For a while, I've collaborated with an academic, an anthropologist, an archaeologist. He ran the time team department down at Bristol University. If any of you, like me, quite like a bit of time team on a wet afternoon. They've got the discoveries outside and everything. When he looks at the data we get, those terrible data sets that we go, oh, there's nothing we can tell from that, he's overexcited. Nearly wetting himself, goes, this is really excellent stuff. Because academics who try and study human behaviour in other fields, in sociology, anthropology and so on, don't have the kind of quality of data we've got. They make much more of it as a result. And I guess that's kind of what the experience is in Latin America, that the data sets aren't as good as we are used to here. And we got lazy by having really good data sets. Is that a fair point?
I think it's the human nature, if you never ate a bar of chocolate before, when one is given to you, you want 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
Mostly if it's good. So it is, you get used. I think one of the things that I always think that benefits you when you have the opportunity to work in different geographies, in different companies, is that you understand how things work in different places. At least you have that experience. But also you develop, and this was my part on the skills, you develop skills on what do you do when that thing is not there. And we are talking about data here, but it could be, what do you do when the infrastructure is not there? How do you sell ice cream in the northeast of Brazil when there are no fridges? So you start developing different ways of seeing things that I think as a marketeer is one of the most exciting things. I have a big bias because when I first went to university, I went to do engineering, and it's very data driven, right? So you see my relationship, love and hate with data. And I left and I went to do marketing. And what I love about marketing is that there is no book. You don't have a book where you say somebody comes and says, so this is the book, read the book, and you're going to be prepared for it. So it's the collection of the experiences you have and you don't have, is the failures that you do. And I think that's why it's important to take risks, because if we don't lead people, if we don't inspire people to take risks and have those mistakes, they will not learn as well. I don't know anyone extremely successful that has a career that has not had a major big failure. Does it make sense?
Yeah, no, totally. I like your idea about reducing the things that we depend on. I think that's quite a good trick, because it makes us work a that bit harder to do good marketing and develop better strategies and better ideas. Less time is always a good one.
Yeah.
But
This is business as usual in some places.
Absolutely. No, I'm not saying. I just think it's a really interesting thing. The other thing, of course, is that I think there's an assumption that all of us suffer from, which is that data is the answer, or the answer is in the data. Sorry, the answer is in the data. And I think, as you were suggesting there, Keith, a just quick examination of the data shows you some things that we assumed to be completely, assumed to be true, are completely false. So I think maybe we should talk a bit about that now. The idea that the majority of views of video count as views on Facebook if they're 3 seconds long is a shocker.
Yeah. Well, I think the interesting thing is, and I completely agree with Patricia on this actually, that the data can give you a bit of insight occasionally, but actually we need to understand how to try new things and find out. Like my point about the first 5 seconds is, I don't know if that's right, but I'm going to try it and I'm going to see if it works.
Yeah.
And if it works, it works. And if it doesn't, you know what? I've learned it doesn't work. I haven't destroyed anything. I haven't ruined any careers. I haven't wasted too much money. I've learned something, and we can all progress from that.
Yeah.
And I think that's the important point, and it is a good intersection between the two contentions.
Yeah. Yes. Who are you, and what's your company? If you hold on, Rob, there's a mic coming your way. And we'll take one more after that, then. Great.
Sorry, Rob Hunt from Northern and Shell. We're talking about doing things that are daring, and there's obviously risk of failure with anything that you do that's daring. With data being such an important factor with all your decisions now, how do you still rely on gut feel, and how do you justify that when you're making big marketing decisions?
Sorry?
Patricia, go.
So I think it's a combination of both. Personally, I'm not a big fan of extremist point of view. I think the balance in the balance there is a lot of wiseness in there. For some of the big decisions, if you have data in there, you should absolutely use it. In some places, in some areas, we have a lot of data. But what I'm just pledging here is there are some other data where maybe they are just not enough. They don't have time enough for the data to be produced. Shouldn't we try them? Should we wait for other people to try it before you get robust data? And I think this is some of the, and if we are just talking European level where, you know, most of the data is quite robust. If you're thinking about a bit broader out there, if you're thinking about taking decisions in the other countries where the robustness of the data is not there, it's to create this, as he says, what are the contact points, what are the touch points that you can assess to help you make an informed decision. And I agree with him. Obviously, you make those things when you know if everything goes wrong, there is not a big disruptive thing for the business. It doesn't need a lot of money. So obviously there are some marketing doesn't have rules, but there are something good common sense of the things that you should track when you're taking some risk. You wouldn't take risk with your biggest brand in your biggest country just to try something new. So you can do a market test, you can do something a bit different. Yep. Does it answer your question? Yeah.
Keith, come back on that.
But I'd only add to it by saying that data, I mean, this is a bit of a truism, so apologies, but data can tell you what's happened. It can't tell you what's going to happen. So, you know, you've got to reach out and go for it. Okay.
It's really interesting. I'm strangely another event tomorrow on crowdfunding, and one of the best investors in the world is someone I talk about at length, Warren Buffett, and he recognises he makes mistakes, but he uses all the data he can, and then has some simple rules of thumb, like, do I like these people?
Yeah.
They're asking me to put money. Do I like them?
Do they have
and that seems like
value?
A really. Yeah. You can't put a number on that. Well, you can if you want to, but it's a really, really non-data-led thing. Of course, he does the data, the due discovery, but it seems to me that decision-making is much more interesting than perhaps we've allowed it to be in our cultures. One more question, and then it's got the mic. So I'm sorry, I'm going to have to take the one. Lady's got the mic. No, someone behind you's got a mic, so take that one first, quickly.
Thanks. Morning, I'm Judy from Brazil.
Yep.
And the question kind of tries to connect both thoughts about the data we don't have and the data we need, or the chances we need to take. Do you feel like we're studying the stories that people want to hear, the videos that people want to watch, because I feel like our market's just producing more and more data about the stories that we want to tell as a market. Maybe that's why we're not getting any views.
Very good, very good question. Can you pass the microphone forward to the gentleman here? We'll take his question as well. We've got to move on.
Hi, it's Nick Hewitt from The Guardian, and this is going to sound more accusatory than it means, but yes. Keith, I'm just intrigued. If you work in a low interest category, why did you make a film that was 2 minutes, 22 seconds long?
Thanks for that, Nick. It's nice to see you. You owe me lunch for that one. Thanks very much. Shall I jump in?
Yeah, go do, yeah.
So, because I think actually the video is too long. I think you're right. Why is it 2 minutes, 22 seconds long? But more importantly, what's not at the front that could tell people the reason to watch it? Because I think the payoff is in the middle and towards the end. And if I gave somebody a reason to watch it, then maybe we would have got longer views. And I just, somebody seeing it for 3 seconds on autoplay or 5 seconds or something like that, they're not going to know the reason why we should view it. So I don't think the length's the issue. I think it's that there's not enough interest at the front bit to get people to watch it for longer.
And maybe this, like the suggestion of the previous question is correct, that we're telling people what we want them to hear, not what they're interested in.
Yeah, I mean, just on that point, sorry, just because I think you're right. And if I take the example of the video we did, which is on personal savings allowance, and I align that to the direct marketing point I was making, if the start of that video says, you've now got £1,000 tax-free, we can tell you how to make the most of it, maybe people would have watched it.
Yeah.
Right, and that's like a direct response ad. It's like an old direct marketing ad.
Yeah. Brilliant.
But it's the point of insight, and I think to this one is how do you capture fantastic insights that will drive people to have interest for what you say? Because the lack of interest sometimes is just the category is not relevant for that person, then probably is not someone that you want to talk to. But sometimes it's the way you're talking to them is not creating the interest. So it's really moving from the data to something that is really insightful and appeals to you.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we're going to move on now. Next up, we've got my old buddy Dom here, who's going to talk to us about talent.
Yep.
Dom.
So my elephant's about
Here's
people
your
and talent.
elephant
And it's really a question of how we're going to make sure that we bring the right people into marketing, the kind of people who are going to help us drive the industry forward in a world that's changed quite remarkably over the past 10, 15 years. Because as we've been increasingly more digitally orientated, data orientated, technology orientated, the kind of people I'm trying to hire are fundamentally different to the kind of marketers that were being hired 10, 15, 20 years ago, the kind of marketer I was when I first started off in my career. Because for me, it's not about throwing out the old skills of magic and creative thinking, conceptual thinking, but it's about making sure we've got more of a balance now with people who can deal with the more complex, more technical side of marketing, which is analysis, managing very technical and complex digital channels. And those people are generally hard skill people, kind of people with backgrounds like engineering, computer science, maths, physics. Those are the people I've been trying to hire more of, and those people are bloody hard to hire for marketing jobs, let me tell you. And I think there are 3 reasons for that, and they're marketing reasons, which is why I'm hopeful that we can solve them. So the first issue that we've got is we've got a brand awareness problem amongst those community of young people doing those hard subjects. Because when I speak to them, I'm talking about marketing, they say to me, well, when I'm at university and I'm considering my career path, I'm being courted by consultancies and engineering firms and accounting firms and the finance function of big corporate businesses. Nobody came to talk to me about marketing. No one came to talk to me about the marketing industry. So at that very early point when they're thinking about where they want to take their career, marketing for a lot of these guys I meet is not even on their radar as something that might be a possibility for them, which is really worrying for us, right? So that's the first problem. Second problem is one of brand perception. And folks, this is a problem we've caused ourselves. Because despite the fact that we all in this room know that marketing is a very broad, very diverse, and actually quite an interesting topic, what do we talk about every day? TV ads. TV ads and creative, that's all we bloody trumpet in the industry, and it pisses me off. Because frankly, I spend about 5% of my time thinking about creative, and the rest of the time I'm thinking about strategy, commercials, positioning, propositions. I'm thinking about customer insight, which is the things that lead up to a great advert or a great piece of creative. But we celebrate winning a Cannes Lion. We celebrate getting a gong at some other award. We don't worry about having a strategy that gets us into the Harvard Business Review. What is wrong with us? It's like celebrating only the last mile of the marathon that we've just run, which is crazy, right? And so when I speak to people outside of our industry and try to get them into our industry, trying to explain to them that we are not the colouring in team is really, really hard. Because we are. And outside of the bubble of FMCG, and I've worked there and it's great because marketing leads the agenda, in a lot of businesses, marketing is the colouring in team. And so that is a real perception issue that we've got to come across. So that's the second problem. The third problem is one of fundamental salience. So even if people know about marketing, know what we do, there's an issue I'm seeing more and more in terms of bringing in the shit hot talent that's coming through and getting them into marketing jobs. Because in my business, which is doing a lot of fintech work, the cool shit hot talent doesn't want to be in marketing. They want to be in product. They want to be building apps and thinking about the new digital services. They want to be in the roles that are now, in a lot of businesses, the conductor of the orchestra, getting all the different functions, including marketing, together to come up with great products and launch them, supplanting the role that marketing has traditionally had. So those are the jobs, when I speak to 23, 24-year-olds who are really great, those are the jobs they want to do. The other side of that is they don't want to work in big, stuffy corporates or on low-interest categories, right? So when I started, and a lot of us in this room probably started in an FMCG business and learned the ropes in a big process, matrix-driven organization, these guys don't want to work there. They want to work for Facebook and Google and Uber, the kind of brands, by the way, that don't do a lot of marketing. They also want to work in environments which are more free, more fun, younger, more dynamic, startups, and increasingly, they want to start their own businesses because technology, particularly with the rise of cloud technology, enables anyone to be an entrepreneur no matter how young you are. Provided you've got a good idea and someone who can code, you can do amazing things. And so we've got a fundamental problem going forward, guys. We've got to get better people in and people who are helping us on the journey, but we are not currently positioned to do that. And that runs a risk of meaning we don't drive our businesses in the right way in a data and digital world, and that fundamentally we remain the colouring in brigade.
It's on cue. So there we are. I think that's really, really cogent and quite a damning view of how we're going about recruiting people and attracting people into the world of marketing. Right, Mark. That'll be Mark given. Mark. We were going to call everyone Mark on the panel just for me to be clear about it, and for you as well, but this is Mark.
Good afternoon, everyone. So, like Patricia, when I was thinking about what I was saying, I reflected on how my role's changed, over the last 20 years as a marketeer. My first job in marketing was assistant brand manager of Pringles Crisps that had just launched in the UK. It had been launched in Harrods, cost £2.50. And I quickly worked out that I had to persuade the Americans that we needed salt and vinegar. Otherwise, we were dead. It's walkers. And actually, once I'd done that, if I reflect back, the job was pretty straightforward. I needed a listing in the big grocers. I needed to make a 30-second ad. I needed to put it on telly. I did a little bit of PR. That was pretty much it. Now, if you fast forward to today, the buzzword, if you're in my position, is that your job is to deliver an omni-channel customer experience. Now, to my mum, that means that wherever she touches our business or a brand, it all joins up. It all makes sense for her. But I can tell you, it's hard work. You know, joining everything up is really hard work. And why is that? Because of silos. You know, I would argue that our industry and our business are full of silos that are not organised around putting the customer at the heart of that decision making. That could be silos in terms of organisational structure, in terms of how we organise ourselves. That could be silos in terms of where we hold our data, in terms of the systems and the technology we use to building our marketing programmes. But the bit I want to focus on is the silos that are increasingly created in an ever fragmented agency relationship. In those days, I had one or two agencies at most to manage. One of the joys of my job is that I get emails regularly every week from, I think agencies call them business development executives. And I picked a couple of them in my Clutter has been great. I don't know if anyone uses Microsoft, but I delved into Clutter this week. And the first one said, do you need a new content publishing agency? The second one said, we are experts on the Internet of Things. Can we come and tell you about that for Sainsbury's? And the third one says, have you reviewed your algorithms recently? And I confess I hadn't. My point is that I don't think anyone believes that you can have one full service agency that can do everything, but neither can clients in my position manage, I don't know, 10, 12, 15 different specialisms within it. What we need is you to work together. But here's the elephant in the room. You don't want to. The reality of the commercial models is such that whilst you will tell us that you're happy to work in a number of different structures that you do across many clients, happy to tell us that you'll play nicely, the reality of the competition within agencies and the reality of how you're commercially set up is you fundamentally don't want to. So my plea is, stop obsessing about specialism and channels. I don't care if it's digital first. I don't care if it's mobile first. I want it to be customer first. Yeah. What are the most critical customer problems that the business has? And as a client or an agency, what are you doing to solve them? Thank you.
Brilliant. 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 Well, I was going to get your sting in there, Mark.
Where's my elephant?
Yeah. Elephant. Oh, no, there's no sting.
Oh, damn it.
There we go. Very good. So, listen, I think that was fascinating, and someone being honest at last about how hard it is and how annoying it is when agencies don't work together, and how they say the exact opposite. It's really refreshing to hear. And I happen to have worked in agencies for most of my career until the last 10 years, and now I sit alongside clients and watch agencies fight all the time. It's miserable. And I remember how miserable it was on that side as well, on the agency side. So it seems to me that's a really big elephant in the room we ought to get to deal with. Any suggestions, thoughts, how we might solve that problem? Daniele, do you want to wait for the microphone, come your way, tell us who you are and your company? Which of your companies? Yeah.
Hi.
Daniele, you are from?
Daniele.
You are from?
Co-founder of Creative Social.
Very good.
I wanted to ask you a question, Mark, because until recently I was actually part of one of those agencies that delivers across the piece. So we did shopper, digital and advertising. And the biggest issue we faced is our clients weren't set up to work with agencies like us because they were siloed. So I think I totally get your point, but how, I think it has to come from both sides.
Yeah, I'd absolutely agree with that. And we spent a lot of time joining up functionally and trying to make sure that we are incentivized and our KPIs are set as shared KPIs across different groups, and that one bit of the business can't win unless the other bit works with you within that marketing. So, I tend to agree with that, and that I think is the challenge within organizational structure right now. I talk to my teams all the time. We can do brilliant work in one channel. I have total confidence in that. But actually the hard work is joining it up across all our own paid and earned within that. So I think that's right. And I think on the agency side, you talked about a few things you were good at, and the advice I always give agencies is, be as broad in as many things as you can be the best at. So are you the best, there is, and I totally respect you work in an incredibly competitive sector at what you do. So don't come in and say you can do all these things if actually you're really good at 2 or 3 of them and okay at some of the others, but you feel the need to add that breadth into them. So no, I agree with your conclusion that it needs to be a two-way discussion.
Paul.
Hi. Is this working? Okay.
Yeah.
Paul Bay, Citizen Bay. I'm ex-agency and ex-client, so
You got both.
so I can see from both as well. So a question about the issue of agencies working together and helping you guys through this joined up thinking and joined up work. Do you find it's a certain kind of agency that can help you do that, Or do you find that it's the right kind of people around the table that can do that, irrespective of what agency they work for?
Without doubt, the people. And, you know, I suppose the question is, how do we manage through this challenge? And for us, we have, you know, long-term relationships with our agencies broadly over long periods of time. We don't chop and change. And we've got people who've been in our business longer than I've been in the business, actually, who built, you know, knowledge, experience, and a lot of respect over the period of time. So I tend to agree. I think it's about getting that relatively tight-knit core of the best people working on your business, obsessing about it, thinking about it, caring about it, being as passionate or more passionate about the business than the client is a bit of art, the art of making that work.
I think the people thing is a really interesting connect back to Dom, so we'll come back to the people in a moment. Sir, behind.
Ben Marr from Mashable. With regards to the talent gap and attracting the right talent to our industry, how do you think that should manifest itself in curriculum at all different levels or education? Because we have more and more courses that supposedly cater for our industry. But if you don't make the decision before you go to choose your degree, for example, you know, are we selling ourselves as well as we could, and how should we make sure that we get into?
Great question, Ben.
So I think for me it's about telling more stories around what marketing actually does and the kind of things that, the kind of contribution we make to business in a broader sense than, as I said, just the 30-second TV ad. Because when I speak to people about some of the very clever and very sophisticated things that are now possible by bringing together great data, great insight, great creative, and great channel targeting, it's amazing. And those stories are truly inspiring. There's some of the things that we are doing to change the game, drive business performance, and yet we never talk about those things. We don't talk about them enough because the whole thing is dominated by who won the Christmas TV ad war.
That was us.
Which was Mark, by the way, if anyone's...
Yeah.
Had to get that one in.
Yeah. It didn't make any difference to you at all, did it, Mark? No. Good. Listen, we're almost out of time now, so if there's any one last question for anything we've discussed, we'll take that now. There's a question, nice lady over there, hand up, and one down there. Get your cards out, though, the rest of you, please, because I want you to think about what elephant in the room you want us to do, to have a look at again in the future. Very quickly, then.
Hi, my name is Anna. I'm from Visium Global. Over the last 10 years, and I've worked client-side, media publisher side, and now agency, I've watched the number of people around the table when it comes to getting a campaign out increase, and more specialisms join. And it seems like the decision-making process is getting so diluted. So it didn't matter who came to the table with a great idea. At the end of the day, you were left with a sort of the lowest common denominator type, 2-minute video that didn't actually say what it was meant to. Do you think this is something clients are aware of now? Is this something that perhaps you're discussing or wanting to address?
So I'll go you one further. Think about a world where we've got increasing levels of complexity, technical advances, data advances, and you've got a bunch of marketing leaders who are fundamentally generalists. How do you make a decision on whether something is the right thing to do when I have no idea what you've just told me? Because I've never done it before and I don't understand it in the level of detail. So I think it's more than just processes and roles. I think it's more as a fundamental knowledge gap developing between senior marketing leadership and the guys on the ground who are driving the execution in a way there wasn't when I started, when to Mark's point, everybody knew how to do TV.
I'm afraid we're going to have to wrap there. We'll be around, I'm sure, later. I'm sorry, we're done with time. Thank you very much for the panel. What I want all of you to do is on that card, the coloured side of the card, just write down the one elephant in the room. The lovely people from the marketing side will collect that on the way out or over here. It will enter into a drawer and you get a free copy of this.
Your book.
Which is a fantastic book, I'm told. Mary Porter says it's a must-read. So if you do that, just write on the back. We will also use those cards. It's very important to complete it and pass them in. So we will use them in the Marketing Society as a platform to say these are things we should be talking about more that we aren't. So please do that. Thank you very much for your time and attention. Thank you, panel.